This conference will now be recorded.
Being 7 p.m., February 2nd, 2022, we will bring the Tilton Budget Committee, what are we doing? Public hearing to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I guess we should just open the public hearing. We have to be open for an hour, I believe. Is that correct? Or-
I don't believe so.
No. There isn't a time limit on that?
Until everybody is heard,
Pardon me?
until everybody is heard.
Okay, sure. So I guess we can just, if there's people that would like to address the budget committee, please do so at this point. Just, you probably want to state your name. We probably want to get you on the record, so, yeah.
Thanks. You're welcome. My name is Robert Roach. I moved to Tilton about 2.5, 3 years ago. I love being here. I love this town. So on here, there is the article 11 about recycling pickup. I actually would propose to put more money toward recycling pickup. I'm not the only one in my neighborhood anyways that has a problem with the fact that there's only one pickup every other week. And recycling tends to build up and we're ending up throwing recycling in the trash oftentimes just to make up the difference. Other than that, everything else in the budget looks pretty good and straightforward.
Yeah, that's a big, this is, I think, we need to study it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because right now, the single stream, we tend to be just, I think, throwing that away anyways. But we're
Really?
paying more. I'm not sure, but I mean, there's,
So
Tim can probably address that better.
So the single stream goes to a facility where it's eventually burned for energy.
okay,
For the most part. It goes through a process. It's supposed to be separated, but what we fail to get out of it is that there are certain commodities that are worth more money. So like
Yes.
cardboard right now is priced well. If we were collecting cardboard somewhere and then selling it, we could make revenue. Whereas it costs us money to get rid of the recycling the way it is now through the single stream, where we commingle all of our recycling together. And it was a good idea at the time, but there are very few municipalities now that are still doing that.
okay,
And it's just very expensive. So in this 22 budget, it's going to cost us anywhere from $50 to $150 a ton to get rid of the recycling. Whereas our solid waste, we pay about $75 a ton roughly to get rid of it. So,
okay. So my secondary question would be if we are getting rid of if we do end up getting rid of the recycling, what would offset the difference of the amount of trash that we would have?
well,
I mean, the one barrel we have wouldn't be enough for all the recycling and trash.
So one of the ideas being discussed by the Board of Selectmen is that that we wouldn't stop recycling. It's just that we wouldn't be doing curbside collection of recycling. So
Okay,
at the transfer station, we'd be looking to make it easier for people to be able to recycle things. So you could take things to the transfer station when it was convenient for you, and then separated it out, as well as the town would be able to make some money. That's one of the ideas being kicked around.
yeah,
But there are others, and it could be that people decide that they want to continue the single stream and collection on the street. It's just
no, but knowing the particulars of it, that makes much more sense. I mean, I don't want to have the town be wasting the money on something that's more inefficient. So it does make sense. It just, we need to know whether, comfort is our thing or saving money. And I understand that. So like my whole thing would be, what's a solution for best, to best support both sides? You know,
Can
so.
we, like, I talked to the like trash people or whatever, is there an option to like purchase an extra trash barrel? Like, cause I would pay $200 a year for an extra barrel. I mean, is that something that we can do?
There actually is through our vendor, our contractor, Pinard, they do have a special colored barrel that is, that you contract for separately. And if you contact Pinard, I forget what the cost is. I want to say it's, well, I shouldn't. say-
Yeah, you don't.
It's not an extraordinary cost, but they do have the capability. They do that in other communities as
See,
well.
they told us,
Okay.
when I just talked to them less than a month ago, they said, no.
There
go
is
to
no
a meeting.
option for that.
Well, if you call, I can give you a name of somebody to call. It
Excellent.
could be maybe just a different person.
Okay,
My
thank you.
understanding was that they could get a second recycle bin. We have 2 selectmen here. Tell me I'm wrong, but you can't get a second trash bin.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that
like
would
that-
still end up being a moot point if we get rid of the
Like, so-
recycling.
For me, I'm a family of 4 and we recycle all the time.
Yeah, and
We still
downstairs is a
end up
family
having
of
to
6.
Throw stuff away. So if that recycling is gone, we're gonna have trash build up.
I mean, we're
And
gonna
I
have a
don't-
lot of recycling.
I don't always have the means to get to the transfer station, and I know a lot of other people don't either. So like the curbside, I know that there's a lot of elderly people that would be affected by this, and like disabled people. Well, trash is just gonna build up. So-
Mr. Chair, there's someone talking in the background and we can't hear them online. Could they
Okay.
go to the microphone?
You just-
Thank you, that's advised.
She's got stage fright. She's,
We get it.
so she was just saying that getting rid of the recycling would cause a lot of issues with elderly, disabled, and just, underfortunate people that don't have,
And not having an option to have.
yeah, don't have enough money to go every week or every day to drop off recycling.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
So
Scott.
as we on the Board of Selectmen have looked at it, and as we've looked at the numbers, you need to understand that there's going to be an exponential rise once we go on and sign on the new contract. We've extended the contract with Pinard 1 more year, but there's going to be an exponential rise in cost, exponential, that's going to have to be passed on to the taxpayer. So now as we look at it, we're trying to figure out how do we work to be able to accommodate our constituents in terms of the recycling, what could be possible, solves for this overall. And understand it's a year out now because we're going to continue on with Pinard for another year and then try and come up with a plan, work with a plan. And as Mr. Pearson said, if we could come up with an efficient system where there would be more accessibility with the transfer station, you'd be able to divide out the different pieces, glass and cardboard, et cetera, the town could end up actually making money instead of actually having to expend money. So we're looking at it, just know that for another year, you'll still have curbside. But we're really trying to solve it so that we don't have to pass on a massive burden. And I mean, when I saw the numbers jump that we got for the quotes for the new contracts, it's going to be a significant jump in cost for both garbage and recycling.
As well as all the disposal fees. All the disposal
Yeah,
fees
all the
are going
tipping fees
way
go
up.
up as well.
No, and I know
Is
disposal's
there an
always a big
option,
deal. I
like,
mean, that's why I wanted to speak on
Is
it.
there an option, even if recycling doesn't go away, to have like people in town to be able to purchase another trash barrel?
She's asking, in case anybody wants to know, she's trying to find a option to purchase more trash barrels. So that's something that we'll have
So
to
that-
talk with
yeah.
Bernard about, or I think you could talk to them and see
Yeah, they
what's,
told me
what,
to come to a meeting.
what's available, right?
Yeah, that is what they said. Go to the town meeting.
Yeah,
Go to town meeting.
but like, I know for us, like, I would pay $250 a year to have an extra trash barrel.
And she would pay an extra $250 a year for an extra trash barrel. But we will have to bring that to
Well,
the
if you-
selectmen to, when they negotiate with Pinard on some of these issues. So that's
Yeah.
good that you're bringing this up so we can
But
pass that
selectmen,
along.
Can't people, I'm asking the 2 selectmen, and there's a third one online. Can't people now, if they have extra trash, bag it up and then bring it to the Public Works and pay to dispose of it?
Correct.
There's a purple bag.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have to pay for the bag and
again,
pay.
we're
for
trying to
the-
That's
figure, discuss or propose a way that it's more convenient, easier to get rid of.
There is in the Tim, I think Tim can answer this better. In the contract that my understanding is when we negotiated the contract 5 years ago, that they were able to purchase above and beyond an extra trash barrel if they needed one, but it would be purchased outright by the resident, not given to them.
Yes.
Am I correct in that, Tim?
Yeah, I believe so. I was
Recycle?
just
Extra
contacting the
recycle.
manager over there.
Yeah, and we were
Yeah.
told,
Yeah.
I may get a answer back, but that was my understanding too, and I thought there were
This
some.
isn't.
That's
There-
gonna be for recycling.
No, that's
No,
that's
like-
the trash, and it's yellow. It's a yellow
The
bin,
door down.
Yeah.
bright yellow bin. It looks very different. So that way the
So they
collection
know
guys
that
know
it's
which is which. Yeah.
Okay, that was
March
all.
12th is our big town meeting
Okay.
at the high school, and that's where this is gonna be discussed by the whole town, so
Oh, excellent.
make sure to
Okay.
come. It's right on, you got this paper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
meeting tonight?
Yeah,
the date's
that's
right
where
on
you want to
there.
be.
8 o'clock.
Yep.
That's where you want to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
So make sure to come to that, so that way all the townspeople are there as well.
Yeah,
because some may have similar concerns, and then everybody can get addressed at once.
okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks for
Yes.
coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Scanlon, what would you like to?
This is really strange for me. This will be the first time since 1996 that I sat on this side of the budget. What's that, 26 years? Yeah, no. You guys are doing a really good job, at looking at that. I went through everything, and as I'm also, in case anybody doesn't know, I'm John Scanlon, I'm also a selectman. So, looking through things, I think we, as selectmen, I'm only speaking for myself, though. It seems selectmen and budget committee were pretty much on the mark. One of my concerns was the community action program, and I heard some of them, and I listened to some of, how you guys figured it out when you did the research on other towns and what they're paying per capita and stuff like that. One of my concerns is that we did cut this back about 4 years ago. I think we asked them for a more accurate number that represented what services they were providing and all that. In towns such as like Belmont, they have a lot of public housing that's available, and those housing facilities also have managers, property managers that walk people through how to get their payments and work everything out with all of these different programs. We don't have a lot of that. I think we have one Peabody. I'm trying to think the other public housing we have that is supported through, Section 8 housing and that. There's not a lot of property managers.
You actually have quite a few. You have New Franklin, you have,
Jamie?
I gotta stop calling it Mosquito Coast, that's what they call it. Lockmere Meadows.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are several.
So, and my concern is that we're getting a lot of benefits to people from the community action program. I know some people with disabilities that don't get out, that the community action program goes around house to house, especially in this weather or time with COVID and all that, and check up on people on a daily basis, and sometimes, many times, provide them with their only meal that they have and their only contact with the outside. I know a few people in that situation, and I understand everything, but I feel like the $3,700 this year with everything that's going on is not the best time to implement a cut or reduction in their funds. Maybe come up a little more or what, and I know it will be a big topic at town meeting anyway. But would they also supply the CAP program with a executive director? And I had the opportunity to be doing some work inside the senior center and just watched how that person arranged for everything and coordinated it. And that at different times during the day, there were people who came in and actually were exercising and doing things. It seemed a little goofy the way they were doing it. But, you know, these are some of the things that are keeping our seniors and also some of the people that might have some types of disabilities going. So I get concerned. I know CAP says, yeah, we'll figure out a way, we'll keep it going. But I think this year, we don't know how the cuts and things are really going to be handed out with stuff. They cut out the energy program to help a lot of the people that also benefit by CAP. And I just want to keep everybody going through this year. That's about it. And yeah, great with the ideas with the trash, the selectmen have been talking about. And that's why that warrant article is actually just to try and get everybody to show up and come up with ideas. Because your ideas are great. And if everybody, you know, can work together and come up with something, that would be great. And if we can turn recycling into something that we can actually break even or make a profit on and do the right thing for our environment, that would be, you know, the ideal thing. But thanks and a great job, everybody. Strange being over here.
I have an answer on the bin.
Okay, great, great.
So the bin is offered, it's $175 a year for the trash.
And that's
So,
for trash.
should you have the contact that he can reach
Yeah,
out?
I can write that down for you.
Oh.
But it should just be the Bernard office, but I asked him if there's a specific contact for that.
Awesome. I mean, that helps with that, but we hope recycling sticks around. Thank you.
So you just say $50 a year.
So John, just to give you my thoughts on this is that we really looked at it pretty close. And I think like a few years ago, we were paying 4 times more than any town. And a couple of years ago, we cut that in half because we just didn't feel it was appropriate. And I don't know why we were paying 4 times more than any other town with the same services for many, many, many years. And so I think we somehow got into that that situation. And so we've just been trying to be fair to us and to all the, and we've really looked at every town and couldn't see much of a difference. And I'm not sure if they do have a lot more housing. I mean, they still get a lot more funds than we do for less money. So I have this huge spreadsheet from last year, and I went over that, and I just can't see where the differences are, why we were paying that much. And do we offer the senior center as a part of their program too, or?
I think Pat's online who could answer more of the senior end.
Yeah.
I'm more familiar, so everybody can hear me, Michelle.
Yeah.
I'm more familiar with what I've seen and not the actual operation of the senior center. I've seen people in the community that use it, young families that get help from CAP with the energy assistance.
And do they
and
just?
how they reach out to those people.
Right, so we're actually providing a great service by having an institution for them to use in a very central location. I mean, we don't charge them for that, right?
No,
Right.
That's the idea to provide.
Right.
Yeah. But Pat could probably chime in on that a little bit more as to the logistics of that.
Sure. Pat, do you have any input on that?
I have a lot of input, and that's why I'm here tonight, because I'm taking a look, and thank you, John, for starting the conversation out on CAP. But as a selectman, I applaud the budget committee for looking at it from a fiscally an economic viewpoint. But as a selectman, I'm taking a look at the entire budget, and we have, $6 million budget. And I look at it from a standpoint of what did the budget committee cut? And the only two things that the budget committee cut were Franklin VNA and community action. Well, what does community action mean to the seniors? And I know you got a piece of paper there that says that other towns and cities pay less for more services, as you've just declared. I don't know, because I don't pay attention to too many other services that other towns are getting over what Tilton has. I do know that community services has cut services in Belmont, Laconia, Franklin, Samberton, and Northfield. So they have not cut services yet in Tilton. They provide in the for non-seniors, they provide services such as fuel assistance, energy assistance. They provide Meals on Wheels to disabled for non-seniors and seniors. Well, that doesn't only provide meals, that provides networking as well. That's the real life, door to door. When they knock on that door and they see somebody that's on the floor, they knock on that door and they put something away and see that that's the only food that that person's going to eat that day. They make sure that that networking is going a little bit further than just a meal. They make sure that they have the resources. They knock on the door and they call CAP and they say this person needs a little bit more. We've seen it over and over and over again. We've seen Meals on Wheels people deliver and find them in the snow. We've seen Meals on Wheels people deliver and find that the person is eating cat food. It's an extremely invaluable service that community action delivers. So there's kind of a five-part to what community action delivers in real life to the town of Tilton. So you have to ask yourself, how important is it to our residents? And then we have our senior center. Our senior center is in its 12th year of existence. It started with an idea, with a group of very community-oriented people who are now aging out. These same people, the 5 executive committee members and our volunteers, are all, I'm the youngest member. I am the youngest member and I'm 70 years old. So just picture 5 years from now, some of our volunteers are 80 and above, 80 and above. And where is our senior center going to be in 5 years from now? Community action gives us 20 hours a week of a program director. And that program director brings in Franklin VNA for blood pressure clinics, foot clinics, flu clinics. They bring in programs like 211. They bring in programs such as Medicare re-upping, explaining what Medicare is about, explaining to them what the donut hole is about. We have that senior center is open above and beyond. We cannot, our greatest fear from the executive committee's point is volunteers. We just are aging out ourselves, and from here on in, it's getting worse. We now have a bus. We pick up seniors and we take them to doctor's appointments. On Community Action has our back on the volunteer driver program. So what we can't have as volunteers, so we have 5 drivers, one of which is me, and I work full time. So when I'm not working, I do volunteer. We have 4 drivers. Currently, one is out of the country. So we have 3 drivers that we rely on. If one of them is unable to drive, we can't cover all our needs as a driver, and we have to say no. The only place for them to go is community action. And they pick up that phone very quickly and say, I need a ride. And that's their transit program. So that's their volunteer driver program. And that's the one that they pick up. Now they've closed the Belmont Senior Center. They've closed the Laconia Senior Center. The only two senior centers open now are the Franklin Trip Center and the Tilton Senior Center. And I hope you all watched us on the Chronicle last week on our Wednesday night music program. It's a huge success. Again, we don't always serve just music and a hot dog and a bag of chips. I mean, there are people that come that can't afford a meal, and we give them that meal on a Wednesday evening. We give them that happiness. We pick them up in a bus and we drop them off, and then we bring them back, and we learn so much more that they need. That's what we do. But we can't be doing this forever. I mean, in a day and age right now where school enrollment is down and senior population is increasing, we should be taking care of our seniors, not forgetting them. And that's why community action is so, so very important in our town of Tilton. I'm not talking about anybody else. We just engaged last year into a memorandum of understanding to pick up people in Northfield when we can. When we can. It's a very forgotten population, an extremely forgotten population. And think about what $3,700 will impact on our taxes. I mean, what is it, a penny on 1,000, Tim?
No, it's actually a penny on 6,330.
Okay, so we're looking at less than a penny to put this $3,700 back into the CAP program and secure that we can continue for another year. I know that they said to you that, well, they'll make do with what they can. And I know that they get federal funds, but somewhere, somehow, some place is going to cut services. It's inevitable to have that happen. And it's unconscionable for the town of Tilton to make that happen with our seniors right now. We can't afford to do that. We have just begun trying to get into New Franklin Apartments. It's been like 8 years now since we've been knocking on the door to try to get them to come up to the senior center and try to do something with some of those people there. And we're just making headway trying to do that.
So, excuse me, Pat, why did Belmont and Laconia close their senior centers?
Funding, because they couldn't afford the rent that the town of Belmont was charging, and they couldn't afford another location in Belmont. So they closed completely because of funding. Laconia, I believe it was where they were located, and it was funding. And so they cut back severely some hours. They're still open, but they're cut back considerable hours, and they don't make as many. They're not open as hardly enough as what they used to be. They used to be 5 days a week. They're not open at that many hours at all.
Okay, well, I understand your point, and we know that we know CAP and VNA coming are extremely valuable. We have no issues with that. We are just trying to be fair to our population. I think for years we've subsidized them, and if the town wants to do that, subsidize them more than other towns, that's okay with me, but that can be brought up at town meeting. We have I don't think anybody here has an issue with the value of CAP and VNA. They're both extremely valuable. We've seen them in action many times. So thank you, Pat. But we were just being fiscally conservative.
So you want me to fight this at town meeting for less than a penny on a tax dollar? You actually really want me to go and say that in a $6 million budget, the only ones you targeted were ones that affected the seniors? Okay,
well,
I can do that.
Like you said, they're mostly funded by federal funding. I mean, our.
They're not mostly funded. That's an incorrect statement. They're not mostly funded. They are funded by American Elders Act on some uh, on some areas, like busing is American Elders Act, transportation. There are some American Elders Act, and there are some federal funding, but they are not entirely federal funded. No,
Right. But I think they're mostly funded, right?
I can't make that statement. Mostly funded, absolutely not.
You want me to look at the figures somewhere here? Anybody else have any input on this?
So for $3,700, I mean, we went. It just I'm not going to get into the argument, but and we're doing $69,000 to Pines Community Center, and we're asking for $12,000 to help our seniors in our community. I mean, on a $6 million budget.
Yeah, I know.
And
We're not against helping seniors, Pat.
what's that?
We're not against helping seniors.
Well, what's that movie that Cruise is in? Show Me the Money. If you're not against helping seniors, show me the money. You voted not only for Pines Community Center, but you voted to give them $2,000 more this year than you did for last year. You didn't even level fund them. If you're concerned about being fiscally responsible, and yet you cut community action by 3,700. And this is a year where school enrollment is down and senior population is increased. That's a fact.
Okay.
That's a fact. Those are numbers. Those are hard facts. And I think Judy can vouch for that.
I don't have those statistics.
School enrollment and
Well, school board has those statistics.
the number of children living in the community is different. There's a different number. You cannot go school enrollment on the number of youths living in the community. That's not because homeschooling doesn't always count for school enrollment.
That's right.
So and prep school and charter school, et cetera. So that does not count. So the number of children still living in the community remains the same. And there was funding cut by the other community that funds the Pines. We went back to the funding that it was the year prior to COVID, knowing that Pines would continue to be able to increase programming, in-person programming.
So the senior center's not able to increase programs?
Well, so Pat, I'm going to throw the numbers at you and where we came from in terms of looking at the numbers that we had. I'm going to put them right out there for you. And I'm going to give you the numbers. I'm going to go through them. So from top to bottom in terms of percentages, okay, of the 10 communities we had listed and were given on the sheet by CAP, the percentage of services received versus amount of money contributed from that community was in ascending order: 2.3%, 2.4%, 2.4%, 2.6%, 4.1%, 4.1%, 4.9%, 2.7%, 8.8%. And then 19% was the one that was skewed because 19% came from Center Harbor. They are given 19% versus the services that they received. So when we then broke down and took a look at communities that are approximately similar size to ourselves, then we felt that a 2.9% would be a fair allocation. And that's where we came with the number, because those were the communities that were very similar in terms of the amount for services received and the percentage that they were giving towards those services. And that's where we came to 2.9%. We are currently, for what we have for this year, it's 4.1% of the services received.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
I still ask the question, how much does it mean to you to help out? If this were a relative, if this were a senior in your family, how much would it be worth knowing that your person, your family member was taken care of by CAP, that was able to receive the care by Franklin Visiting Nurses Association? How much is that worth in percentage to you?
I mean, do you want to give them 100,000 instead? I mean, if you really want to push that question,
This shouldn't be. a
I'm,
debate.
I mean, this is, maybe we should just discuss it at town meeting is what I was saying before. I mean, yeah, I think
If you're
that's,
not willing to vote, on it, this is a budget public hearing where we make our last ditch effort to the budget committee to rethink their budget. And if you're telling me that you're not willing to take another vote on this tonight, I will definitely bring it up at town meeting. But I didn't hear consensus that you're not going to re-vote on it, Billy. So if that's the
Okay,
case,
hang
I'll
on,
shut up and say, go ahead, take your consensus if you're not going to rethink it.
Pat, I'll pull the board right now.
Pat, I
Before
think you're
you
being
do
very
that-
combative.
If we change the vote, don't we have to have another public meeting or things like that?
No.
I mean,
No.
no?
Because it's not.
If you're telling me it's useless to talk to you, then I should never have showed up. But that's what the purpose of a public hearing is all about.
Pat,
You're right,
thank
you're
you,
right.
thank you for your input, Pat.
Yeah,
We appreciate it.
that. Now it's trying to coerce and influence the board to change a decision right now and here, and we don't have to do that.
But we could poll, I mean, as
Absolutely.
far as I'm concerned, I'm good with our decision and we could just go around the board. If we have enough people that want to change it, we can do that. Anybody else have a desire to change our original vote? So we seem to be fine with what we're doing. And so I think, Pat,
All right, thank you for your time.
you can be very persuasive at town meeting. Thank you.
And can we clarify when they say 1 cent, isn't it 1 cent per thousand? It makes it sound like you only have to pay 1 cent.
For
And
6,000, we were saying, right?
no, for like if it goes up 1 cent and we have to pay it on our tax bill, isn't it per thousand?
Right.
So
So
somebody,
it's per thousand evaluation. So
Okay.
if you
not
were
1
to-
cent
if-
to call,
If
yeah.
you were to reduce our town valuation at 633 million and change. So that represents every $6,330 represents 1 cent of tax rate on, a per 1,000 evaluation.
Okay. John,
Yeah, just one more.
sure.
I've been both sides of the table, so I'm just pondering and offering some input that I have for suggestions in case you guys do want to change anything.
Sure.
If not, well, it's always town meeting time. One of the things, and of course, it's going to be VNA. And same type of things I said for, the CAP program, it's so important. It helps everybody across the board. And I have the opportunity to have worked at the VNA doing some repairs and stuff like that. And I can tell you, I'm sure we can, that these guys are extremely frugal. They don't buy new desks. They don't buy new computers. Everything is like, there's broken chairs and there's a guy down there that tinkers, puts them back together. And so they're very frugal with their money. None of it is wasted. It all goes out directly to their staff and their overhead for being able to supply people to go out to these homes, and do that. The buildings sell together. No fresh paint, a fresh carpet, something like that, and their supplies. And, and I understand that they're gonna, these guys are angels, so folks are angels. They'll do whatever it takes to get to each other, to our homes. I don't know how they're gonna do it. But again, with all the COVID stuff and people being put off for their surgeries, and not being to get into hospitals just to care for elderly and stuff like that. And I just think that this year, that these things, and I'm not gonna rehash the cap and that, but this year is not a good time for cutting out on, like the visiting nurses and that, just because people are more homebound and need a little more healthcare. And the other part is I'm concerned about people leaving visiting nurses and going to other facilities with this big healthcare shuffle of employees. So that's about it. And you don't have to change it, but you want to change it or amend it even a little bit to help out a little bit, you can go ahead and make that motion. Anybody seconds it, that's good. If not, I'm sure it will be a big thing on the town meeting floor, because there's a lot of people get scared to them and affected by it, but that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any comment for that? Or? I just think we did a really good job looking at just the government money that most of these people receive, and
What grants they receive.
grants, COVID monies, and why we didn't fund. There's a lot of agencies that we didn't fund because they have such a huge resources, and they had a lot of COVID infusion. We didn't feel that at now, some of those agencies, we were more or less, they just want us to put some money in there to show that we're supporting them. But we didn't feel at this point that those agencies really needed that. We'd rather actually, my personal choice would be to send out a flyer promoting their services, because I think if that flyer would go to every home, and a lot of these are mental health, they're businesses which people in trouble need to be able to turn to, and they might not be aware of them as we are. So to me, it'd be much more useful for us to advertise them for the town instead of giving them money. To me, I think that would bring them actually more customers and more service to our town. But and I think for the other agencies, we also just felt that we should be on a level playing field. That's the only thing I know. I think those organizations are tremendous, and we need their services. But there's also other towns involved in supporting them that could probably give more than altogether. But we don't have that choice. We just can focus on our budget. So.
And Bill, to back, and John as well, when we looked, and I know that the two towns that we took comparative numbers on the VNA were Franklin and Northfield. And so Franklin received $591,958 of services provided, and they contributed only 4%. They contributed only what would have been 4% of the services provided, so it was about $27,985. Northfield contributed $5,000 to Franklin VNA. They received $133,163 in services, so that's 3.7%. Tilton itself got $93,200 worth of services, which we had contributed last year, $12,572. So when we went and looked at doing $6,000, it's 6.4%, which is still higher than the other two municipalities. Plus, it's higher than the other municipalities on here as well. So that's sort of how we reasoned it in terms of looking at, honestly, the dollar cost value for what we were doing. We're doing, knowing that we do need to serve this part of the community, but exactly how much do we really need to go above and beyond, knowing that they're still going to have funding coming in.
And we did ask their directors, please explain why there is this difference. And I don't feel that we really got a really good answer. I mean, they did send us some information, but nothing that really explained to me what the difference was. I mean, there's something, I don't really understand the Belmont situation at all, because they're getting way more money than they're getting for cap. And there's something about, they have these housing issues over there, which I still don't understand why that would be a difference, because they're getting a lot of federal money, I imagine, for those housing.
Billy, I think I have one other question to ask you. I think the question to ask CAP is, if we needed $133,000 worth of services, would we have gotten $133,000 worth of services last year? We only needed $93,000 worth of services, and that's what we got. If we needed more, would we have gotten more? And the answer to that question, because I did ask the director, Susan Demers, that, and yes, we would have. Thank you.
Those numbers were from Franklin VNA. We got 286,400 and change from CAP.
Yeah, that he was referencing VNA on that amount. Yeah.
Okay.
The same goes for CAP, though. The same goes for CAP in Franklin VNA. They help as much as they can help. When they're asked to help, they help. If it's $125,000, it's $125,000. If it's $312,000, it's $312,000.
Yes, I know. The director said if we gave no money, they would still be giving the same amount of service to us. So they're bound by whatever their laws are to help the local people. Did you have anything, Tim?
I just had some housekeeping when it's appropriate.
Okay, sure. I think
We don't have a water district budget.
no, that's actually right. That is the housekeeping too. Water
Well,
district budget.
I can give you an update. So one of the commissioners did stop in and explain the challenge that they had was regarding some turnover of personnel. And they did develop a budget, but were not able to put together an MS 737. I suggested that he could just come to the meeting, and he asked if he could just show up, and I said, yes, I think you could just show up. And but then he left me a message subsequent to that saying that they didn't have, I guess, the appropriate format to bring. And so
could we make a motion to approve last year's budget?
That's what we
Which I think Jeannie had suggested.
Yeah, DRA.
Jeannie, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, according to what our attorney said, is you would just adopt the last year's budget as the default budget.
Can we do that at this meeting?
We don't have that copy of that budget though.
Yeah,
I was looking for one. I didn't have one.
I don't know if Tim has that, if anyone has that budget in front of them. Or that number. And further, what the attorney said is if between the time you adopt last year's budget and town meeting, you can always make that adjustment at town meeting. If they've got their budget together, you can deal with it at town meeting.
We wouldn't need to spend any water for next year. I mean, it's not, the MS7 is not the plan that we look at for a budget
It's just the
anyway.
budget, yeah, but
No, that's what they
MS7
submit
is
to
we just
DRS,
resign it
but
to approve that.
that's their final budget format, basically, but what we require is in that format.
Tim for that. Is there any other discussion on the warrant articles or?
But I can just go through a couple of the
Okay.
Because then, you know,
Are you changing anything in the budget?
no, not really. Let me go through them.
Okay,
Two
let's,
little
let's,
things.
let's
First of all, I
run through.
mentioned last week that there may be a rounding $5,
Mhm.
and there was.
Yeah,
So
I see that.
The final number was 5992680. So that was also, that dollar was corrected on the warrant article number 2.
Mhm.
And it was simply just a rounding thing. So I went through and ran a tape on it. And then you would please vote on the warrant article number 3. Town Administrator Forrester would simply do an entry regarding the LED lighting.
Okay.
And if the committee is ready to vote on that, that would be good tonight. I need that prior to producing the MS 737 for the town budget. And then lastly, you did request that you wanted the revenues in here and also the funds. And I did have, I didn't want to reprint this budget just for one correction.
Okay.
So I just
Scratch that out.
highlighted through that and correct. And that's all I have on that. And I will come downstairs and we want to know what other than the town report here is sufficient. Or do you want a copy of their MS 737? That's really all we have. They didn't supply any. It's either the consolidated format from the town report or the or I can print out the MS 737 from the DRA.
Well, if either one works, let's go with the simpler one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whichever is easiest to
Yeah,
read.
yeah. And meanwhile, I move that we approve Article 3 or recommend by the Budget Committee, Article 3, which is the see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate up to $103,864 for the purpose of purchasing and installing associated materials, supplies, tools, equipment, labor, and other services necessary for the construction and completion of LED street lighting in Tilton.
Second.
Discussion.
What was the outstanding items we were waiting for? Because I didn't get any. But I don't remember.
Yeah, we just weren't sure what that figure was, the 103.
If
It was,
all the lighting or some. Or
Well, my question is, are we gonna own these lights? And we're done. If there's something in that makes them our street lights.
and they did,
Or are we gonna be able to still eliminate street lights that don't really serve us, like they don't serve our side roads or?
we did get an email from Jeannie on that.
The question was, I guess, asked by Catherine about the street lights. Would they be ours? Yes, they would be ours. And if they're eliminated, we will see a reduction because of that elimination. But Catherine asked a question, so I think I responded back to Catherine. I didn't respond back, and I think I might have responded back to Bill. I can't remember, but.
Yeah. Oh, I may not have put that forward. But
I didn't see it.
yeah, I did. So,
There's no
It's
brand.
okay. I just had confirmation on that. I come to you all. The ones lights that we're going with, will have on.
right.
We don't want them on. We can turn them off.
Give them, right.
I think the question was, if we turn them off, do we still see them?
Well, we're still on the light. However, if I verify, they're going to go through the survey of the lights. How? time in the sky, some, now.
Okay.
And that would change the price of the action and lower it.
In the end, yeah.
I think that's right, Jeannie?
That's
I-
amazing.
I don't know who was talking. I really couldn't understand what,
That was John Scanlon, all right. He was just rehashing the light costs and that the final dispensation of lighting is yet to be known.
that is correct. That is correct. And I pulled up the email from Affinity, and it says you will own and have responsibility for the lights, the mast arms, wires, and everything behind it remains Eversource's responsibility. Says if you're asking about what happens if you decide to remove one or more old lights versus replacing them with LED, then we can assist you in having those removed and having Eversource remove it from your billing moving forward. And John is right that they will do the final assessment once this is voted on at town meeting and the contract is signed, because not always whatever source says is ours. And there may be some that were missed in their audit, the Eversource's list.
Thank you, Keene. Any other discussion on the motion? Yes, Christine.
Scott gave me some information, but I wondered how, you were telling me how this even came up. I didn't know there was a vote problem. How did this come about, having to do this?
We didn't really, it's a sensible cost it'll pay for itself in like 4 years. And then it's gonna be saving money after that. That's what Ellie.
Kind of like a master plan thing.
Yeah. Sure, exactly, right, yeah. Any other discussion? All those in favor of recommending Article 3, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? But the ayes have it. All right, now we'll go on to the Lockmere Village Water District budget.
So what this document shows is, it shows a operating budget balance of $41,920 and an estimated revenues of $41,920.
It shows actual expenditures too, by the way.
Keep in mind that was for the prior year, so that would have been
Still.
2019.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Well, no, that was,
Where's all the extra
we
money
did
from?
talk about that, I think, last year.
Well, it's like if we had them sitting here, we would have an answer to that question, right?
So this budget is all based, it's not taxation, not paid for by taxation. All
But it's still our responsibility to go over this budget.
Well, I'm not disputing it, I'm just saying.
It's still raising and appropriating money, whether it's through fees or taxation.
That's right, it is. Fees first.
Just a huge difference.
Just keep in mind that where it says currently and prior year, currently would have been 20, and prior year would have been 19.
Thank you.
And it looks like from 19, they asked for 41,920, right? Prior year appropriation, is that what they asked for? And then the actual, and then what they wanted for 2020 was level funding. Is that what I'm looking at?
That's correct.
So even in 2020, they asked for the same amount and didn't spend. I mean, I would want to know where, I guess it's going to go to the capital reserve, all this extra money. You know? I don't know.
Well,
Looks like there was spent 5,000 less in financial, which I'm not sure what that is. And they spent 5,000 less in administration. So
Yeah,
We don't know
maybe a
what's,
staffing change, I don't know.
we don't know what's in the reserve fund. This doesn't tell us.
Says
I can
zero.
give that to you. I can give you the balance of the reserve fund, but. I don't know if I put that on here.
Yeah, so this is-
Village fund.
Administrative costs is just. The water treatment. That's actually simple.
I don't know.
We certainly have got to communicate with them before next year.
road trip,
Someone
you mean?
available by phone?
Road trip, we'll just
All
drive
up.
over there.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
go to
we
their
can
next
do
meeting. There you go.
We can do it in the town parking spots.
Now, let's see, here we go. So they have,
Looks like they have two funds, capital reserve and trust and agency.
Right.
funds.
Yeah, so both of those totals are important.
let's see, they have, in their expendable trust, they have $94,043. And they just put in another 3,900.
They did what?
They
They
deposited.
they deposited $3,900 into the, what had, as the end of last year, balance of $94,043.
Is that the capital reserve?
That is their capital reserve fund. It's actually.
And there's a trust and agency fund, what is that?
I don't believe they have a trust or agency fund. I think they just have the capital reserve fund.
Just have that line in case.
It is not in custody of the trustee, which is where it would be.
Mhm. So we approved 41,920 last year, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I'd move we approve that last year's amount. 41,920.
You're looking for a second,
Yes.
Oh.
for a second for discussion.
Okay, yeah, discussion.
It's really hard. I mean, 94,000, we don't know anything about their infrastructure. Is there something that needs to be replaced? It's a relatively new system as far as water district goes. It's not like what we have locally here, but you know what I mean? This is really hard.
Yeah, because like under machinery, vehicles, equipment, it's zero for capital outlay.
And this is still user funded, correct?
Fees,
Yes.
water fees.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I'm just trusting that they're taking stock of their people and doing, I mean, that's
We
what I
don't have a
got.
choice, do we?
Well, that's what I had last year, so I feel that we could duplicate that this year.
And then,
if an issue comes up, we can change
okay,
it, right?
I'll just make sure we get them in here next year so we can ask
Yeah.
the questions.
yeah,
maybe we could get them in there even earlier
Yeah,
to
we
go
need
over
to,
their system.
Let them
So
know
we
their
under-
budget could be affected if they don't.
well, could not,
They might come in then.
well, we could, I mean, essentially, we could sit here and approve this for $25,000.
Mhm.
And they don't, I don't think they realize that.
That's why I said if they were told.
Yeah, so,
It wasn't for lack of trying to
No, I know.
have them
Yeah.
come.
Yeah, well, and this, as you know, the select board, we've asked probably a half a dozen times as to where it was as well, so.
well, they won't even provide a member for this body. That person has to be approved by them.
I mean, they should be notified. We can just do $1 if we wanted to. I mean, they're not coming in here and doing anything.
And what would that do if we did that?
Well, as I said, when one of the commissioners talked to me about it, he cited that they had turnover and that they were in a bind, that they were between people for doing the, I think it was the accounting and reporting, and they were having difficulty making that transition. So that was sometime around the end of last year, beginning of this year. So, but I did understand that from another commissioner, that they had approved a budget. So.
Who is the commissioners?
Well, Joe Jessman is one.
Oh, okay,
And, Paul Boudreau.
all right.
I don't
Yeah.
know the third commissioner.
I think I know both of those guys.
You've probably,
but-
So
And Joe Jessman didn't have any, has not been able to,
I believe Paul's the chair.
Yeah.
He's the one that has typically come in, and he's the one that had relayed that information. But I can tell you, I think it would be problematic. I mean, you can certainly vote any amount you like, but I think it might, for such a small, what sounds like a tenuous group to me, I think it would be very disruptive for them. They're just trying to,
Mhm.
do what they can right now,
Yeah.
the way it sounded to me. So, but you certainly have that authority if you wish.
I know we did meet with someone last year, and this was what we approved from that meeting.
That was
So,
Paul, right?
Paul, yeah, so I'm feeling that personally, that would not be harmful to approve that.
Yeah, but they just kind of brought it and we said,
But no,
okay, thank you.
I understand that this disrupting our process by them not coming in.
But I agree with you. We gotta, I mean, we want them to continue to exist. That's for certain.
Right, and so any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the last year's Lockmere Village Water District for this year, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I'm gonna abstain because I'm not comfortable voting on.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, Christina, abstain. All right. So is there anything else that we need to do before we close the public hearing?
I have a couple questions, but you don't have to have a public hearing
Okay.
for that.
Well, I guess I would move that we close the public hearing at 8:10.
Second,
Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, so what else? Yeah,
one of the things Pat did say about the Pines community, I wasn't here for that voting, and I would agree with her that it should have been level funded, so I'm just gonna put that out there. The second is, in the last minute meetings, minutes, it talks about this 4% that's gonna be brought up at town meeting. What was, I didn't see any here, what was the reasoning for this 4% or
So,
because it's not typical. I mean, some people get 50 cents.
right.
You know, we've been doing 2, 2.5, and now we want to jump up to huge 4%. So I want to know why.
So you're talking about for the town clerk tax collector specifically, or for the?
Everybody. It went on, everybody had all these 4% everywhere.
So so in the budget discussion with the selectmen, Typically, we've done 2.5% a year. Last year, it was 2%. And with inflation and looking at the cost of things, we made the case for 4%. There, Deb Shepherd's not here right now, but she noted that in their town, they're doing the same. And she talked about some other towns that, there's one in particular that's at 7% between COLA and their step increase. So it just varies widely, but we're having to make, in addition to just merit for existing employees that are here, we're also having to raise starting wages in order to attract people to open positions as well. So it's just a matter of the labor market.
And this is going to
inflation.
be brought up at town meeting specifically about all the 4% or just the town tax?
No, so,
No.
well, the
Not
4%,
necessarily.
the 4% is in the budget. The town clerk tax collector had requested, because hers is voted on by town meeting.
Right,
So-
right, yeah.
So that's why it's a little different in that it's
And she's just starting.
right, but she had put in for the same 4%. So the salary information that you see in here for 22, that includes the 4% for her. And it's roughly, I don't have it off the top of my head. I don't want to misquote. So, but in any case, it's 4%.
And then
Out
on,
of
I don't,
$2,400, I think, in salary and taxes.
how much is our taxes going up based on this budget, plus all the warrant articles, plus everything in there? What would our budget be, our tax?
With everything,
Because I don't see with everything.
um,
No, it's going to go up.
yeah,
Based on our budget of the selectmen.
that would be your
It
budget.
should be our budget,
It's your
yes. You got that right, Judy.
1 second, I can give you a kind of a thumbnail.
Well,
If
the
all
budget-
all the warrant articles you're saying?
Yeah, do you have that?
Not off the top of my head, but I can give you
It's like, if we could have what the percentage is of increase without the warrant articles, with the warrant articles, and then I'd like to see the difference in the 2% to the 4%.
well, and if you recall, I typically will give you that for the town meeting so that you have
Right.
the breakout
That
of
would be
each of the
great.
warrant articles and what the tax implication is. And then also, the operating budget with the estimated revenues. So, yeah, would you prefer I just do that and send it out if I have it, as opposed to trying to give you something now?
No, you can send it on this file with me,
Okay,
because we
right.
still have town meeting.
Okay.
Now, as we look at the warrant articles, there's only really one new increase, is at the 103. Everything else has been
Well, the
normally,
police one is new.
is normally voted on.
Oh,
So
oh,
the
I mean, new from last.
the LED is, and that's a one-time.
Right.
So
But what I'm saying that, like the 2,500 for the senior,
Mhm.
30
that was there last year.
35,000 for the equipment reserve fund,
It was exactly the same as last
the
year.
90,000 for the roads was there last year.
Yeah.
The 9,000 revaluation capital reserve fund, that was there last year.
No foil.
The 5,000 was there last year. And I'm not sure if, it's a 10,000 for Tilton Island, was that there last year?
That was not.
Okay, so there's, and the 42,000 for the, so the new items are the, or the figures that will be increasing the budget are the 10,000 for the Tilton Island, the 42,000 for the special police detail revolving fund for the cruiser, and then the 103,864. So those are the kind of, increases for the warrant articles.
Right, but I think even besides that, just our regular budget, it's gonna go up.
Oh, our budget has gone up.
Yeah, it's gone up
since last year.
2.9%, yeah.
I
Well,
wanna know how it's gonna affect
and
them.
also on that, the warrant article with the LED, maybe it was said when I stepped out of the room, but there is legislation to restore the New Hampshire saves. You did mention that. Okay.
Yeah.
So it is up to, it probably
Up to,
will not be
yes.
the full 103, it'd probably be more like 80,000.
So when that's read, maybe they should emphasize up to.
We'll probably know at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, we should know if that's been approved.
Give it almost a $700,000
And, yeah, and
increase.
as I articulated to you, our point of emphasis also is that this will be a $22,000 a year electrical savings.
Yeah.
So once if we can get the New Hampshire Saves piece, it was about 3.5 years.
That's right,
And then it's
yeah.
about 3.5 years to pay it back in what we would save. And then we're saving $22,000 a year in electrical costs.
Yeah.
And improving lighting in town. And as John was saying, is that it's adjustable. So if you have a neighborhood that says that it's too bright, we can dim them in that neighborhood. If they need it, we find that we don't need some, we can turn them off. And it also, Affinity is also notified if a light goes out. So it's no longer where a resident has to report the pole number. Affinity knows what light goes out.
And I can tell you, of those 3 items that Bill just ran through, the new warrant articles, those, including the full amount for the LED, is about 24 cents on the per thousand on the tax rate. So for a $100,000 house, that'd be $24. $200,000 house, 48, and so on.
And if you really look at most of our departments are down. The increases are sanitation, long-term debt. Those are the huge increases in this budget, which,
You get almost
Well,
a
long-term debt's up.
$500,000 increase.
yeah, in just
Land
long-term
use is
debt.
up, long-
and
So you add up the
sanitation.
others, now you've got 5,
Sanitation.
6,
Outside.
6.5.
Now,
No, those are already here, but
there's actually 140,000 in, 140,000 in the operating budget increase.
From last year?
So you're going from 5,344,000 up to 5,480,000. So not quite 140,000.
Well, you know what? I looked at what we actually spent.
Oh, okay. Well, that's we're almost done, but it's still a few things trickling in.
I have one more.
sure.
This is for Tim.
Okay.
You know what's gonna happen at town meeting.
What's gonna happen?
People are gonna say, let's say we wanna take money out of, I forget what the fund was that, remember we did all the voting last year?
Unassigned fund balance.
Unassigned. Explain that a little bit more, where can this be used,
Sure.
not used, and all of that, because it's gonna come up. I mean, I liked it coming out of somewhere else, so. couldn't
Right.
complain.
So our
It's
audited-
Unassigned?
It's called the unassigned general fund balance. So essentially, there's a larger fund balance that is restricted for certain things. So like our
Right.
capital reserve funds are part of that bigger fund balance. Other things that are the assets that, but they can't be used for just anything.
Right.
Then there's a set amount that, and that's, it's on your last page. I think it's $441,000 is the unassigned fund balance as of the last audit, or 466,000.
Where is it?
Page 15, the bottom of page, the very bottom of page.
Oh,
15.
okay,
So keep in mind,
Oh.
that says of 12/31/20,
Okay.
because that's an audited amount.
okay.
So in any event, when someone makes a motion to have something funded out of the unassigned fund balance, it is being paid for out of this amount, if you will. It is not a cash balance or a bank balance. It is kind of a net assets, if you will. way
Like
of
an
looking at
investment
things.
account?
No. So it's not a liquid amount. It's basically our net assets of the town. So it's our gross assets minus all of our
Right, okay.
liabilities, and there's an amount that it all shakes out to. And so this is less all the restricted amounts, things that are legally set aside for other things like the capital reserves.
So some of it is liquid.
There's some liquid, but there's not a lot liquid. So $466,000 is not a lot.
Do we
So-
know how much is liquid?
Well,
I'm just, because I know it's gonna come up.
it wouldn't be relative, because
Okay.
that is as of 12/2020.
Oh,
So,
right.
So in any event, the best way to look at this is money that can be used to reduce the tax rate. this is the primary vehicle for an unassigned fund balance. So if you were to take out $1 of tax out of the tax rate, that's $633,000. Now, it is possible that as of our audited financials for 21, we may have a balance of, say, 600,000 in unassigned fund balance. So that money can be used by the selectmen to offset taxes. It can also be used to pay a judgment. There's a welfare stipulation if there's certain things that that money can be used for legally, but there are not many. And so one of the things to keep in mind is that we saw a 10.5% reduction in our tax rate this last year, primarily because the Winnisquam schools, the change in the number of things, but the pandemic and how everything, came out at the end of the year and the money that was returned. So the downside of that is it's an anomaly. And this year we're looking at about $1.89 increase, whereas we had $1.90 decrease. It's almost a 1-for-1 going to be an increase this next year. So what we saved this last year, we're going to be paying back this next year. We're in a lot better position than, say, Northfield, who's looking at almost a $3.63 increase. But in any event, so having preserving this unassigned fund balance is important if you want to be able to reduce the tax rate. Otherwise, if you use a lot of this money for, let's say you paid $200,000 of capital reserve funding through the fund balance, then you just have that much less money to be able to modulate the tax rate. And one of the things that I've always found important to advise the board on is that it's really important for homeowners who have escrow accounts to try to keep the tax rate as steady as possible, because otherwise the bank or mortgage company tends to extrapolate out what they think because of the current experience, what they think the next year's experience is going to be or the future, and they end up collecting more money than is necessary. So when a tax rate whipsaws, it's much more difficult for people that probably can least afford it. So in any event, and I think it's fine. Some of the smaller items, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just that if you end up using a lot of it, you're not going to have any gunpowder and you're looking at, let's say, a really bad tax rate at the end of the year. And it could be a sizable one, because also, if you recall, the first tax bill of the year is the same tax rate as the end of the year prior. So really, the entire increase comes in one bill at the end of the year, and that's going to be it's just going to be big this next year. So that's the caveat with that, and just the hopefully it'll help you understand a little bit more.
Well, I bring it up because, like, as you say, the gunpowder is all in the hands of the selectmen, not the budget or the constituents to reduce the tax bill. They vote on deciding if we're going to reduce that or not. So that's why the townspeople vote to put those small ones out of the budget, because it will reduce the budget. That's the only control they would have to affect that amount.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the selectmen do have some other things that they can do during the year. So they could freeze a budget, or they could do other things that then creates less expense, and at the end of the year that helps with the rate as well. So there are other vehicles, but yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you.
What was there a recent year that the selectmen used any of that to reduce the tax rate?
Oh yeah.
Like how long ago?
Most yearly, isn't it?
We didn't this last year, but almost every year prior, I'd say anywhere from maybe 100,000 up to 275,000. I think it was the largest I recall, and that was a few years back. But now I've got a record of all those. It shows on our. I do annually do little sheet, a worksheet that shows, how our tax rate is generated and what, if any, fund balance that we use to offset it. So
So like certain selectmen want it, we're looking at those two outside agencies. They can talk about, reducing it when they can make their decision. Using the unassigned fund.
they cannot use, the Board of Selectmen can't use the unassigned fund balance for any budgetary purposes.
No, so it would reduce it in general.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. That's all I have.
Anybody else have anything else? Let's, I make a motion, we accept the Tilton Budget Committee meetings of Wednesday, January 26, 2022.
I have one small,
Correction,
change.
addition.
On page 2, the second K Dawson, it says K Dawson would like some questions about Article 3. So it can either say K Dawson has some questions about Article 3, or K Dawson would like some answers.
I'll give you some questions.
I asked a question looking for answers, is what I did.
Where are you?
You had some
Top of
questions.
the page, just before it gets to the bowl.
Bottom of
second
the
page.
first part.
Yeah, so you would say Catherine Johnson had some questions about Article 3? Oh, would,
Yeah,
before making a decision.
It's on the first page, right?
The second page,
second page.
right above the bold, first bold section, it says.
Oh, yeah.
So it would be like Kate Austin has some questions about Article 3 before making a decision.
Like some answers is far more Catherine Dawson.
Would like some answers. Okay, that's
the truth.
why don't we put
Oh.
answers instead of questions?
Don't listen.
Any other discussion? Those in favor of accepting the minutes with changes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. Christine. Anything else before the board?
Do we have another meeting with this? Before town meeting?
If you want one, we can.
No, I just was asking.
You want to make up for the few that. Oh, I'm sure.
So I can tell you that I should have the MS 737 prepared for you, and I'll send out an email when that's ready for your signatures.
Okay.
Would you prefer to sign in person or sign electronic?
I think I signed electronically last year, I think.
I like electronic.
I mean,
Selectman Ruggles rolls, Mr. Pearson.
I'm in and out, so I can do either way.
Okay, all right. So we'll probably do it electronically.
Yeah.
And then if anyone's missing, I'll be sure to call them. So, but that'd probably be the easiest for everybody.
Sure.
One year somebody drove it to my house.
It was probably,
I couldn't get out.
probably Joyce.
Yeah, Joyce did, yeah.
So motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Ayes have it.
Right. Yeah, I do have the name of a guy.
What the heck am I looking at?
This is a truck bumper in the ball, which is
Yeah,
underneath the guardrail.
so he's kind of a freelance.
That's not good.
It took me